And I think that's so important from an events perspective too, right? Like building a career on where have we come from? What are we trying to accomplish? How can we push everything forward in a financially profitable and impactful way for any of our attendees? It's all interconnected.
Hello and welcome to today's version of the Keynote Curators podcast. I'm Seth Dechtman, your Keynote Curator. Our guest today is Liz Sage. Liz is an event professional with nearly 20 years experience in the industry. Our conversation covers important ideas like event strategy and execution. We discuss the best ways to optimize your team and the event's messaging throughout the entire conference. It's a fascinating and wide-ranging conversation. We appreciate you joining us. You'll be smarter for it. Hello and welcome to today's version of the Keynote Curators podcast. I'm Seth Dechtman, your Keynote Curator. And today I am proud, honored, and have the privilege of having our guest, Elizabeth Sage. I know Liz for a long time. We've worked together in 3 different companies, bringing speakers into all sorts of events, hybrid, virtual, in-person, for all different industries. Liz, welcome to our podcast today.
Thank you, Seth. I'm so pleased that you asked me to be on the podcast. I don't feel worthy, but I really appreciate being here.
Well, you are well worthy, way worthy, and we're not worthy Wayne's World here. You are fully worthy. Liz, typically, these podcasts and interviews or conversations start off with the litany of accomplishments that guests have so that our audience can, get a sense of who you are. I prefer for you to share with us where you're at, what you're up to, and what do you feel that's important to our listeners who, keep in mind, the overwhelming majority of them are meeting professionals. But we have people from all walks of life, including keynote speakers and other types of industries that are represented. So what brought you to this moment where you're at? And why don't you just start with that?
So my whole life history, is that what we're starting with? Okay.
Pretty much. You can start with the state of Hawaii. And then, I earmarked 3 or 4 days for this. So, if you can squeeze it into that, I think we'll be okay.
Okay. I'm going to do it in 2.5. Just to help you out, Seth. Okay.
Great.
So I have a 20-year career in event planning and strategy. I guess you could say it officially started in high school because I was the person that was always coordinating my friends, planning parties, planning events. I planned my homecoming. I co-chaired my proms. So I think I always had sort of a knack for getting people together in one fashion or another. And I didn't even know that was a career. Fast forward to college. I'm like, I'm going to be a journalist. I'm going to be a CNN broadcaster. And that did not happen, clearly. I ended up in an internship that led me to understanding events in hospitality and catering was an actual career. And so I said, all right, let's give this a shot. Moved to San Diego, found my way into a hotel. And I guess kind of the rest is history. I just have slowly been building my way over time over the last 20 years from the hotel side, the third party side, I guess, into corporate. I've worked in a variety of industries, pharmaceutical, finance, biotech, tech, like startup type tech, agency even first. And now I sit here kind of ready to share my knowledge, I guess, on events as I transition more into a consulting and coaching role.
Wow. I didn't know that about prom and homecoming and all that. Now it really does make sense. I mean, origin stories are important because you can create that through line. And when you look back after a 20-year career, which it's hard to say, oh my God, 20 years, where did the time go? But where was the seed planted? And it was all the way back to homecoming and prom. And that's really, really cool. And I think it's important. Tell me if I'm wrong, but when you're coaching and consulting with people, it's important that they know where they've come from and what the origin is and what the source is of how they behave and operate now.
Absolutely. It's so important to understand where we came from. When we're thinking about coaching in particular, or even consulting, our job is to not necessarily dive into the past and revisit it, but it's just to make sure we have a clear understanding of it so we can leverage that in moving forward in whatever that may be, or leave behind the bad, pull the good with us as we move into our future. But yeah, origin stories are so important. And honestly, Seth, it's funny. I had somebody recently tell me that they found a connection in my life, which I didn't even think about. But I should say the through line in my life was connection, connecting people, connecting with people. I wasn't even aware of that happening. But I will say, when you talk about origin stories, I am so fascinated by individual origin stories as well as company origin stories. I want to know where they came from and how they got to where they are today. Kind of the first question you asked me is sort of what I will ask somebody within just a couple of minutes of meeting them.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important from an events perspective too, right? Like building a career on where have we come from? What are we trying to accomplish? How can we push everything forward in a financially profitable and impactful way for any of our attendees? It's all interconnected.
Yeah. I mean, look, these big tentpole movies, these $100 million movies or more, Marvel and DC Comics and these superheroes, just think about how important the origin story is. Batman, what was the seed that was planted? So we can't understate it. You mentioned something about being financially viable and making an impact and having a lasting difference made in people, that whether it's doing personal coaching, consulting, or the attendees, or the people that are even creating the event, that they too, through their experience of creating the event, have that difference made in their lives. And I know, working with you firsthand, and this is the truth, that's always been something that's important to you. But walk us through a little bit. It's a challenge, but it's also a rewarding part of being a meeting professional and being a coach and a consultant, about keeping your eye on the ball, moving the organization's initiatives, goals, objectives forward, and in the context of having people have a positive experience, growing, learning, and expanding their capacities along the way.
Sure. When we're thinking about putting together an experience of any kind, whether that's an internal meeting, a 5-day conference, whatever, right? A festival, anything, any sort of experience, you have to understand why you're doing it and what you're trying to accomplish. You have to think about the attendee journey throughout that whole process. I think the whole point of experiences is to transform people, like at the highest level, at the most meta level. We want to transform people, even if that's a simple business meeting, a simple internal business meeting. You want people to leave with a changed behavior. That's the whole reason why we get business events together. Or even honestly, I would say, like I said, festivals or something like that. So we have to understand what we're trying to accomplish. And really, that comes down, when you think of a purely corporate perspective, you want to know, hey guys, we're spending a lot of money on this event. How are we going to get a return on it? Right? Like, what kind of setup are we going to have? What kind of framework are we going to put together in order to actually accomplish the 1, 2, 3 strategies that we know will help the bottom line of the company moving forward? And it may not be an immediate return, right? But it might be
Right.
like a 6-month or a 12-month or an 18-month plan. But it's still, the whole point again is to drive forward, to change behavior, to transform people, to be maybe a better version of themselves that will then profit the company, help themselves, feel good about themselves. It's kind of a win-win for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, the meta, the macro, the big picture, the context of transformation, right? Another word that's thrown around, but really making a difference where you alter the behavior, where, the train is going on one track. They come to an event. It could be a festival. They come to a meeting, something seemingly benign and innocuous, and the trajectory of that train track is shifted just enough where it's transformed their future, their experience, how they operate and how they behave. So, keynote speeches change lives. And any keynote speaker that we work with stands on that idea that a keynote speech is going to change your life. It sounds big idea. It sounds a little bit cocky. It sounds a little bit wishful, but it's true. The person that's up there delivering that speech can have that kind of impact where life can be changed by what they're saying and what's being heard. And that's what we do on a day-to-day basis. We keep our focus on that so that the attendees walk away with something lasting, impactful, and immediately useful. So Liz, a comment I make is that meeting professionals like you who have 2 decades of experience are the chief cook and the bottle washer. I mean, you deal with signage, registration, name tag credentials. This family needs pillows that are hyperallergenic. The lighting, the sound, the ground transportation, security, catering, offsite events, kid-friendly activities. It really is a scope of all things. I'm going to bring you down memory lane a little bit.
Oh, fun.
We were in Colorado Springs at the Broadmoor, and we had a hypnotist.
Oh my God. I just told this story I kid you not, I just told this story to somebody within the last like 6 weeks. So funny
Yeah.
that you bring this up.
And look, I know that many other organizations that book speakers aren't in attendance at every event. And I, quite frankly, try to make it and be another resource. And as the keynote curator, be there for my buyers to intervene for the most small things, making sure the speaker gets set up, or if there's a long walk distance, in Vegas or in these convention centers, it could literally be 2,000 yards or something to get through a labyrinth. Well, here we are at a dinner, and the evening speaker / entertainment is a hypnotist that really, remember, Liz, everybody was hypnotized.
Oh yeah, they were. They
Oh
sure
yeah.
were.
This is like this is no put on, to the point where we had a little bit of challenge to deal with two of the participants who were not previously in a relationship, but under hypnosis were kind of heading that way. And the other spouse in the audience was not having it. And it became a real challenge. So not only are you, as a meeting professional in that moment, Liz, I'm going to bring this full circle, can have your eye on the food, the beverage, the lighting, the timing. People are there having fun, but there are things that are spontaneous that come up where you have to intervene and calm somebody down, get a little bit of context and some coherence. And you're almost like a psychologist in that moment. Do you remember that, don't you?
I absolutely remember that very clearly. And your retelling of it has made it that much more vivid for me.
Yeah.
I mean, we're problem solvers, right? That's what we
Right.
do in our space. We solve problems. And the way to solve a problem is by being a good listener. So that's where you talk about the psychologist aspect coming into it, is we have to listen. We have to make people, and this is going down my sort of coaching path, everybody
Right.
just needs to be heard.
Yeah.
People at our core, we want to be seen and we want to be heard in any situation. So yes, it requires excellent listening to solve the problem of an irate attendee, or the catering tray that didn't make it out in time, or whatever the case may be. We solve problems. We have to be good listeners. And yes, we have to deal with all kinds of situations, including people who are maybe not their most emotionally controlled selves in the moment.
Right. And it was a situation, I don't want to relive it and rehash it, but there's a reason why I want to talk about it, because you saw the connection to where you're headed with consulting and coaching. First of all, we had a problem. So that was just established and we weren't going to run away from it. Second of all, it needed to be handled right away. You had, I wouldn't say more of a deep relationship, but you knew the person that was upset, irate, if you will. And I had more of a relationship with the speaker. So kind of as a team, but really I acknowledge you because you had the harder task. You had dealt with it head on. And that's part of the coaching, where something isn't working, or something isn't working as well as we like it to. And instead of fortifying what's already working and strengthening the things that are operating at a high level, let's look for areas that we can gain some muscle in and build up and expand our toolbox. And that was, I see the through line in your coaching and your desire to impact people and make a difference and have people be heard, that's one stop along the through line of your story, which is now bringing you into a consultative and even coaching capacity.
Yeah, I think about that particular individual, and I've just kind of viscerally put myself back in that moment, which I haven't done in a long time. And I remember him being so upset. And I remember thinking, there is nothing I can do right now but let him say his piece. We did not go down the path of defensiveness. I actually, at that point, I think had brought our internal leadership into the conversation. And it was really more about, okay, how can we solve this together? What is a solution that feels good for everybody to move us forward, right? So it's listening to what this person needed to say, needed to get off their chest. It's hearing how we could work together to come up with a solution to move into the future. And that's exactly what coaching is like for me today, and even consulting to a certain extent. It's like, let's listen, let's hear where we're at, and let's work together to come up with something that can move us forward.
Yeah, it's just a lesson learned. Sometimes, and this is also speaks to experience. When you're younger, maybe it wouldn't have been either of us heading that on. But I remember in that room going into the fire. All right, let's move on from that one. But that was funny. I want to get into talking a little bit about speakers for a minute. I'm a huge proponent of fostering a partnership with, the speaker and their team. And some speakers have offices and managers and, somebody who becomes really an extension of the conference team, the conference experiences, the conference services team, whoever it is that's producing the event. And it's important that, from my perspective, that they understand the whole agenda, the flow, communication points, the strategy, what the goals are, who's in attendance. What's been your experience working with bureaus that you have had speakers come in through them into your events?
Well, my most positive experiences are ones where there's never a shortage of communication. So having that really open communication, and you're so great about this, Seth. And I know this is
Well,
not
thank you.
necessarily to pat your back, but truly, like, there's a reason why I have worked with you with so many different companies. There's a reason why I continue to reach out to you. You are so communicative, and that matters so much. It also goes both
Thank you.
ways, right? Like, we need to share. I need to tell you
Yeah.
what's happening on my end,
Yeah.
being as honest and transparent as I can. I know sometimes when we're getting ready to book a speaker, there's a lot of like hurry up and then slam the brakes. Need this kind of back and forth
Hurry
happening.
up and wait. And
Hurry up
then
and
wait a
wait.
minute. Hurry up.
Yeah. Why didn't we get them booked yet? Oh, but we're
Right.
not ready to make an offer yet. All
Right.
of that. So, yeah, communication is key. I think from the organizer side, understanding what kind of speaker I want and why. And you and other bureaus also, like, in general, I think your job is, and you again are very good at this. Your job is to sort of dispel what I actually need based on what I'm telling you, right? You need to
Right.
kind of read between the lines.
Yeah.
I was recently quoted on LinkedIn, a company that I've worked with in events, a strategic events company, talking about like the future of experience is not just about the big name keynote, it's about resonating with impactful messages. And I truly believe that. And I think two things. One, you can have a big name keynote that can, as you mentioned earlier, change lives and connect deeply with the audience, as long as they are relevant to the messaging that the organizing body or the company is trying to get across. And two, I think there's so much room for those lesser known big name keynotes. And I have learned over the years to be such a proponent of these people that are not necessarily, the big sports athlete or movie star or whatever. Not that they don't have relevance or impact. However, there's something to be said about these maybe lesser known speakers that people haven't heard of, but have a powerful message and can
Yeah.
connect deeply with
Yeah.
audiences. And it all
Yeah.
comes back to, again, knowing what am I trying to accomplish with this event? What are the messages that I'm trying to get across? And then connecting with the bureau and saying, here's what I want to do. Who do you have that can help me accomplish this?
Yeah, very well said. You took the words out of my mouth. On the one hand, there is a thinking out there, and I think this thinking is changing where you get a big name because that's going to draw attention. A big name is going to push up registration. And it doesn't mean it's at the cost of messaging or having a long lasting impact. That's on the onus is on the organizing company or entity that's hosting the event to make sure that that message is extracted out. But often it can be at the expense of that. I wouldn't even say speakers that are lesser known because it kind of qualifies it down. Speakers that aren't huge celebrity names that by the virtue of their name recognition, they're going to bring in attendees, but they might have an instantly relatable message by virtue of their own story, how they deliver it, the theme of the event, the mood of the industry at the moment, the mood of the organization at the moment, what stage of transformation they're in. So there's a lot of those little subtleties that have to factor in. And you and I talk about this. We have truly just a week or 2 weeks ago, we're actively working on something and it's a conversation. So it's not just like, give me a list. This is the date. This is the location. This is how much we have to spend. And they like, speakers that talk about this. That is one way to do it. And people can get an impactful message. But I think today, especially post pandemic, with the commoditization of events and speakers themselves and all sorts of vendors, the stakes are higher and the expectation is bigger and the appetite is deeper. So, you took the words right out of my mouth. Liz, I want to move on into specifically kind of where you have found yourself after 20 years of producing events, all kinds of events that have made a huge difference in people's lives. And in that, I've seen you not only with the incident with the hypnotist, but I've seen you operate on the ground before doors open for a 4,000 person event, running an expo hall where you've got 20, 30, I don't know if the word is kiosks, but vendor spaces to manage, big offsite catering events. And the underlying current there is leadership, strategy, communication, and execution. And I know we've talked about this where you come into people that want to contribute, want to make a difference, and either they are unaware of something that's in their way, or even if they're aware of it, they're unable to move beyond it, get through it, have that breakthrough. And I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, that's part of, like, again, the through line where you find yourself, not only have you had to signage, security, catering, and everything, but with the teams that you've been responsible for, coach people through naturally. And I think over time, it's no accident that you find yourself in that position now.
That's exactly right, Seth. I've had a great time in my 20 years doing events. I feel so grateful to have found that career. I loved it. I was good at it. I am good at it. It's not a past tense, I really think I found something that I'm good at and I love doing. And I think that's so rare. Not a lot of people get that. It's an ongoing conversation I have with people in my life of just do what you love. And people are like, that's not a thing. I'm like, no, but I mean,
Right.
it can be. And through that process, to your point, I had the privilege to manage multiple teams. And I have found, as I've maybe gained more wisdom in my life, that where I am finding the most fulfillment, especially during my own little COVID reset, as many of us went through, is connecting one-on-one with people and impacting them. And exactly as you said, helping them overcome whatever mental obstacles are in their way from getting to the next level or the next version or the next best version of who they are. I think life is a constant evolution. I'm personally a seeker. I think we are all always in process. There really is no end. It's the constant evolution of who we are. And I just want to help people continue to evolve, continue to level up, continue to better themselves. I've found a lot of success in that with people on teams that I've managed. And that is what brings me the most joy at the end of the day. And I'm so excited to continue to do that for people. And I don't want to say change lives because that seems so big, but I personally have had coaches in my life that have made such an impact on me, and I wouldn't be where I am today without them.
I'm listening to you, and the other side of the coin is you get fulfillment, but when you make that impact and that contribution, you have to expand your own capacity and you have to expand your toolbox. So it's not just like, oh, okay, you have this, this, and this. Let me go into my file and here it is. Because every situation is unique. Every situation is tailored. Every situation requires a very specific, concentrated type of focus and effort. And that in turn, inversely, requires you to transform ongoingly as well.
Absolutely. And so there's maybe a bit of self-serving going on there because, as I said, I am constantly evolving. I love the idea of continuing to grow and connecting, whether I'm helping a company better themselves, better their experience, better their event, or an individual. To your point, I get something out of it at the end of the day as
Right.
well. I think the best experience I've had from a growth or evolution perspective is being a mom. Because you want to really learn yourself and learn what your positive attributes and your not so positive
Yeah.
attributes are, just have a kid because they will
Yeah.
point them out to you either directly or through their behavior. And so that experience has just, that alone has helped me really grow into a more, I guess, full individual. And I get to take a lot of that toolkit with me as well when
Yeah.
I'm helping companies and individuals.
Yeah. Well, the parenting topic is a separate podcast that we'll have to schedule for another. That'll take 6 or 7 days, but
Yeah,
we'll put
maybe
that right.
actually.
We'll put that on the calendar. No, I was going to say, self-serving sometimes gets bad press. Whenever I hear it now, I was reminded by a colleague that when you get on a plane and they go through, in the case of oxygen, you always need to do yourself first before your child, because if you're not there, you can't help them. So it's no different in the coaching world. You have to be clear, grounded, and as you emphasize, listen and be over there in their world. And that's the starting point. And you're doing that with people, and it's exciting. And I can't wait to see where that's going. Liz, as we all move on in life and we're in different phases and stages of our lives, I know that you're establishing yourself as a consultant for event professionals and meeting professionals. And in addition to that, the continuation of the through line of impacting people's lives, you're establishing and developing yourself as a strategic coach for people in their career and in their lives. Mm-hmm. What for you, if you could share, is the ideal person that you coach?
Thanks for that question, Seth. I'm really there, and I found my sweet spot to be people who are in between, if you will, kind of that messy middle, I'm just here. I don't know what comes next. I'm trying to decide, do I want to transition into a new career? How do I get that promotion? Even in their personal life, people trying to decide if they should make a move, if they're going through a divorce, but anybody that's sort of in that interstitial waiting space, that I'm kind of in the in-between and I don't know what comes next.
Right.
I find that that's where I thrive, I guess, in helping people and get to that next step. Businesses as well, actually.
Yeah. I mean, it's a messy space, but it seems like that's where you have a lot of facility,
a lot of experience
in messy spaces. But
definitely.
It's important because, and I can only talk from my experience, unless you have somebody like you and I've gotten coaching, it could be a space where you get kind of bogged down in, and you don't even realize after a while that you're in that space.
Totally, totally. And I will tell you, kind of step one is acceptance of just saying, all right, I'm here, and that's okay. And I might be here for a bit, and that's okay.
Right. That's part of the process. And then from there, owning it, accepting it, getting a lay of the land, and and then you come in and work, do the work that you do. I want to switch gears now. I never like to say it's the end. It's just the completion of this version of our podcast. We'll have you back. We'll see where you've headed and what you've accomplished with this next stage in your career and your life. So we're going to do what we call 20 questions. Just you rapid fire it and we'll get through it. Are you ready?
I'm ready. 20 questions make me super nervous. They required me to be such a fast thinker. And
I call it 20. Honestly, we do like 9 to a 12 just because.
Okay, cool.
Okay, you ready?
Cool, let's go.
What's something about you that we wouldn't learn from reading your resume?
You start with this hard question. Something about me that you wouldn't learn from reading my resume. Oh my God. I have a million different things.
All right. Give us two. Give us two. Just right at the top. And you know what? At the end or in the middle, if something else comes back, we can come back to it.
Okay. That I love to cook, that's kind of a later in life passion of mine, that I have found a joy in cooking, and that I love sunsets.
Yeah. What's your favorite dish to cook?
I make a pretty mean, there's this recipe I found called chocolate chicken. That's not a very healthy, no sugar added recipe. And it's pretty awesome. I've modified it slightly and it's delicious.
All right. I'm pre-qualifying. This is an even harder question. In the last year, what's the most memorable, beautiful sunset that you've experienced?
The first one, I purchased a home about a year ago. We moved in about a year ago, and the first sunset from our backyard.
Oh, definitely that's beautiful. All righty. Social media, friend or foe?
Friend with an asterisk. Yeah, I'm a big fan of, kind of curating your own path. And I think with social media, for me, that means I try and take command of my own algorithm. So I purposely interact with accounts or companies that I find value and that bring me joy. And I purposely do not with others that don't. And this is my fun little Instagram fact, is every couple of months, I actually go in and look up people or accounts that I haven't interacted with in a while, but I want to. And I just start liking random posts to, again, adjust my algorithm. So friend with controls, because I feel like I still need to be in control.
Right. Friend with a very tailored awareness.
Yes. Great.
Who do you follow on social media that lifts your spirits?
I couldn't tell you the name of the handle, of course, but there's like a positive news account that I follow. I repost from them all the time. It's called something urban, but it's all these like very like empowerment. This is what you need to hear today. Truly just my friends. See, like getting to see old friends
Hmm.
from
Yeah,
college or people I don't get to see all the time. Like those accounts probably bring me the most joy versus some random, influencer account because
right.
I love people. I love
Right.
my
Well,
people.
there it is again. You're more connected with that rather than some random, even if it's a famous person or whatever.
Yeah.
If money or time were no object, where would you go that you haven't yet traveled? It's
Antarctica.
Antarctica.
Yep.
Three must have items when traveling.
A book, my water bottle, and my phone, which is gross to say, but just because that's like my whole life is in it.
No, but it's a camera, it's a calendar, it's an address
Yeah,
book, it's a map, it's a lot of things.
it's a lot of
Worst,
things.
worst part about traveling.
Funny, some people would say the airplane ride because they don't like it. I love the airplane ride because I can't be bothered by anybody. I just love that alone time. I'd say the worst part about traveling is trying to sleep both the night before your trip and the first night that you get there. Those are
Yeah,
always like really challenging
yeah.
nights for
I,
me.
I can relate to that. What's something that you would like to do, but you suck at?
Sing.
A lot of
I
people say
wish.
that.
My mom's a
What
great singer and my kids are great singers, and the talent skipped a generation.
apparently
It's
it
very
just
sad about that.
jumped right over Liz.
Yep, totally.
What's something you know that's bad for you, but you have a hard time giving up?
Sugar. I
Yeah.
love my desserts.
Do you have a hidden talent?
I can whistle with my tongue. Is that a talent?
You bet it is. Are you kidding me? That's the first
It's
time we've heard
weird.
that here. Yeah.
Yeah, I can whistle with my tongue.
What's the most beautiful thing in the world you can think of?
A rainbow. I love rainbows. They remind me of home. They remind me of hope. They remind me of one of my favorite phrases growing up, which is no rain, no rainbows. Like you're
Mm,
not going to get that rainbow without the rain and the
right.
sun. So, yeah, a
Ah,
rainbow is just my most magical thing ever.
a romantic, Liz Sage.
Is that a romantic? I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. That's just, it's in you. Well,
Rainbows and
Liz,
sunsets.
yeah, rainbows and sunsets. See, and at your new home, I mean, come on, home is where the heart is. It's
Mm.
unavoidable. Well, Liz, this brings us to the end of this podcast with you. I just thank you for your generosity of spirit, your willingness to share your journey, your insights, some of your compliments. Thank you. Going down memory lane together and just, being a yes for this. I know it's not always the first thing on our minds. Hey, let's go have a conversation that's recorded and then it's going to go get published. So just really thank you for doing it.
The pleasure is mine, Seth. Thanks.
You're great. Thanks for spending time with us today. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe to our content. We'll keep bringing you the latest industry news and insights. Don't forget to follow us on social media so you never miss an update. And if you're looking for a keynote speaker for your next event, reach out to us directly or visit our website at thekeynotecurators.com.